Change is never easy. It demands more than just talk, more than just wishes, and far more than waiting for someone else to do it. If you truly want change, real, lasting, meaningful change, then you have to take action. Change doesn't come to those who sit back and hope the world will magically correct itself. It comes to those who roll up their sleeves and do the work. We live in a time where challenges are plenty: social inequality, economic struggles, environmental crises, and more. These problems won't solve themselves. They won't disappear because we post about them, complain about them, or wait for someone in power to address them. Change begins when individuals, ordinary people, decide they will no longer accept the status quo. It begins when you realize that your voice, your actions, and your choices matter. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to show up. You need to vote. You need to speak up. You need to stand for what's right, even when it's hard. Every step you take toward justice, equality, and progress builds momentum. And when enough people move in the same direction, change becomes inevitable. History shows us that progress has never been inevitable. It's always been earned by those who marched, those who fought, those who refused to accept injustice, and those who kept going even when it felt impossible. The power to change the world doesn't belong to one person or one office. It belongs to each of us, but only if we choose to use it. So don't wait. Don't hope someone else will do it. If you want change, take action. The future is written by those who dare to act today. Change requires action, not just hope or words. While it's natural to wish for better circumstances, a more just society, or a brighter future, nothing truly transforms without deliberate effort. Hope is essential. It gives us the reason to dream and the strength to endure setbacks, but by itself, hope is passive. Words can inspire, motivate, and rally people together, but unless those words are backed by action, they are simply noise that fades with time. We often hear people say they want things to be different. They want better opportunities, less injustice, more fairness, but wanting isn't doing. Speaking about problems is not the same as working to solve them. If we continue to rely solely on dialogue and debate without ever translating our thoughts into motion, we will remain stuck in the same cycles of frustration and disappointment. True change is built through steps taken, decisions made, and risks embraced, even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. Every significant moment of progress in history was sparked by people who decided that their desire for change was worth the effort it would take. They didn't just talk about what was wrong. They moved, they organized, they created. Whether it's voting, volunteering, standing up in the face of injustice, or simply reaching out to someone who needs support, action transforms intentions into impact. It is the difference between wishing for a better world and working to build one. It's easy to wait for someone else to take the lead or to believe that change is someone else's responsibility. But when we fall into that mindset, we give away our power. Taking action doesn't always mean grand gestures or headline-making moves. Sometimes it means choosing integrity when no one is watching. It means showing up day after day, even when you're tired, frustrated, or unsure. Every action, no matter how small, adds up over time and moves us closer to the change we seek. Ultimately, if we want to see a shift in the world around us, we must be willing to shift ourselves first. Action is what separates dreams from achievements, hope from reality. It is the engine of all transformation, and without it, even the greatest vision remains just a vision. Real change begins with individuals taking responsibility. It doesn't start in government buildings or at the top of corporations. It begins in the hearts and minds of people who decide that they can no longer wait for someone else to fix what is broken. When we recognize that we have the power to make a difference, even in small ways, we begin to understand that the responsibility for change rests with each of us. It's not just about waiting for leaders or experts to lead the way. It's about each person stepping up in their own corner of the world. Too often, people feel powerless in the face of big problems. Climate change, inequality, corruption. These issues feel too large, too complex, too entrenched. And so we retreat. We tell ourselves that we're just one person, that our choices won't matter in the grand scheme of things. But that's the mindset that keeps change from happening. Every major movement in history began when individuals chose not to be bystanders. They refused to pass the blame or wait for ideal conditions. They acted not because they were certain of success, but because they knew inaction was worse. Taking responsibility means looking at the world and asking, "What can I do?" It means owning the consequences of our choices, both big and small. It's understanding that how we spend our money, how we treat others, how we vote, how we raise our children, how we show up in our communities. These things shape the society we live in. No one is too small to make an impact. Responsibility isn't a burden. It's a power that, once accepted, unlocks the potential for true progress. We may not be able to control everything, but we can control how we respond. We can choose courage over comfort, action over apathy, and effort over excuses. When enough individuals decide to live with intention and accountability, it creates a ripple effect. One person becomes two, two become 10, and soon a movement begins to take shape. That's how change takes root. Not from a distant figure making grand promises, but from everyday people deciding that they will be the ones to make things better. Responsibility is the starting point of any real and lasting transformation. Problems in society won't fix themselves. We must confront them directly. It's tempting to believe that with time things will sort themselves out, that progress is inevitable, or that someone else will step in and do what needs to be done. But the truth is, no issue in history has ever resolved itself without the persistent effort of people willing to face it head on. Injustice, inequality, poverty, discrimination, these are not self-correcting systems. They persist and grow stronger when ignored, and they only change when confronted with consistent, determined action. Avoiding uncomfortable truths or turning away from hard conversations may offer temporary relief, but it delays progress and often deepens the harm. Whether it's systemic racism, climate change, or the widening gap between rich and poor, these challenges require our attention, our voices, and our involvement. Looking the other way does not make the problem go away, it allows it to grow in the shadows. Change requires confronting what's wrong, acknowledging the pain it causes, and working together to fix it. We must resist the idea that being aware of a problem is enough. Awareness is only the first step. Real change happens when awareness leads to accountability and action. That means listening to those affected, learning the facts, challenging harmful norms, and being willing to take a stand, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it means disrupting the systems we've grown used to. Silence in the face of injustice is not neutrality, it's complicity. If we see harm and do nothing, we become part of the problem. This kind of confrontation doesn't always have to be loud or dramatic. It can start with a conversation, a vote, a donation, or a simple decision to speak up when others stay quiet. It means not settling for "this is just the way things are," but daring to imagine how they could be better and then doing the work to get there. Every step toward justice requires someone willing to push against the status quo, to ask the hard questions, and to refuse to accept suffering as normal. Waiting for problems to fix themselves is a luxury we can no longer afford. The world doesn't change by accident, it changes because people refuse to accept what is and fight for what could be. Confrontation, when rooted in purpose and compassion, becomes a powerful tool for transformation. Every person has the power to make a difference through consistent effort. Often, we underestimate the impact of our own actions because they seem small or insignificant in comparison to the world's problems. But change is rarely the result of a single dramatic moment. More often, it's the outcome of steady, persistent effort by people who believe that even the smallest step forward is better than standing still. You don't need to be famous, wealthy, or powerful to make a difference. The real power lies in how you show up in your daily life. It's in the choices you make, the values you uphold, and the way you treat others. Whether it's mentoring a young person, organizing a community cleanup, starting a conversation about difficult issues, or choosing kindness in the face of anger, these things matter. They may not make headlines, but they shape the culture, build trust, and inspire others to act. Consistency is what amplifies that power. A single act of kindness is important, but a lifetime of showing up, speaking out, and standing firm in your principles. That's what builds movements and transforms societies. The people who drive lasting change are often those who keep going when it's hard, who don't give up when they don't see immediate results, and who believe that progress is built one choice at a time. Change is not a sprint, it's a marathon of effort, determination, and belief in something greater than yourself. Sometimes it's easy to feel discouraged. You work hard, you do the right thing, and yet the world still seems full of injustice and division. But real impact doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's invisible at first. A child who grows up in a safer neighborhood because of your advocacy, a friend who decides to speak out because you had the courage to, a neighbor who begins to care more because you set an example. These are the ripples of consistent effort, and over time they create waves of change. The truth is, the world changes when enough people decide to care, to show up, and to keep going. You are never too small to matter, and your effort is never wasted. Every day offers a new opportunity to build a better future, brick by brick, step by step. All it takes is the decision to begin and the courage to continue. Progress in history has always come from those who took a stand. It was never simply handed down by those in power or achieved through comfort and convenience. It came when people, often ordinary individuals, chose to speak out, to resist, and to act in the face of injustice, even when the odds were against them. Those who changed the world were not always the loudest or the most celebrated. Often, they were the ones who refused to look away, who refused to be silent, and who refused to accept this is just how things are. Every major advancement, civil rights, women's suffrage, workers' rights, independence movements, environmental protections, was made possible because someone chose to take a stand when it mattered. These were people who understood that doing what is right is not always easy, and that standing still in the face of wrongdoing is a form of surrender. They were not immune to fear or doubt, but they moved forward anyway, guided by conviction and the belief that things could and must be better. Taking a stand does not always mean taking to the streets or making grand speeches. Sometimes it means being the only voice in a room willing to speak up. It means defending those who are marginalized, questioning unfair systems, or challenging deeply rooted beliefs, even among friends and family. It can be uncomfortable, and it often comes with resistance, but that discomfort is the price of progress. Real change requires courage, and courage begins with the willingness to act on your principles, even when it's inconvenient or unpopular. What history teaches us is that progress never happens by accident. It is driven by choice, by the decision to resist apathy, to reject complacency, and to engage, even when you're tired or discouraged. Each person who takes a stand becomes a spark that can ignite others, and together, Those sparks form a fire that cannot be ignored. The world we live in today, with all its freedoms and opportunities, was shaped by those who dared to push against the current. It's now our responsibility to do the same, to honor their legacy by continuing their work and standing up for what is just, fair, and true. In the end, history remembers those who took a stand not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. And that same opportunity lies before each of us today. The future depends on what we choose to do now, not what we wait for. Every day that passes is another chance to shape the world we want to live in. The future isn't a distant, abstract thing that simply arrives on its own. It's built in real time through the choices we make, the actions we take, and the values we uphold. Waiting for the perfect moment, the ideal leader, or for someone else to step in only delays the progress we desperately need. The truth is, there is no perfect moment. There is only now. What we do today matters. The conversations we start, the injustices we challenge, the help we offer, the change we push for, these decisions define what kind of future we create, not just for ourselves, but for generations to come. If we spend our time hoping things will get better without acting, we surrender our ability to influence the outcome. But when we act, even in small ways, we reclaim our power. We send a message to the world and to ourselves that we are not helpless. We are capable, we are responsible, and we are ready. It is easy to get overwhelmed. The problems are big, and the pace of change can feel slow. But we must remember that progress is not made by the strongest or the most privileged. It is made by those who show up and keep showing up. The people who change the world are not always the ones with the most resources, but the ones with the most resolve. Every act of courage, every step toward justice, every decision rooted in hope rather than fear, that is how the future is built. And so, the question isn't whether change is possible. The question is whether we're willing to work for it, because the future is not something that happens to us. It's something we create. And if we want it to be more fair, more just, more compassionate, and more united, then we must take responsibility for shaping it ourselves. Don't wait, don't stand by, don't hope for change, create it. The future is watching, and history is listening. What we do now will echo for years to come. Let's make those echoes count. Let's take action, because that's how change begins, and that's how a better world is made.